People who've seen nice people finally snap. What happened? I had just started high school and there was a new kid. I was from a 1 primary/1 high school town, so all the kids already knew each other. He was a giant aboriginal kid who was quiet with no friends, so my friend and I befriended him. We always chatted to him, and he was so lovely, always softly spoken, and generally just so nice. Like holding doors open for us, and bashfully smiling when we would go out of our way to be friendly to him. Anyway, he started getting picked on by the bad boy of our grade relentlessly. One day he snapped and beat him up with a garbage can and was expelled, and I never saw him again. This woman, Mary, I worked with, was always pleasant and cheerful, said hello in the lunchroom, and was generally liked. She worked in finance in special projects. She said she wanted to retire in a few years, and she had been working there for 15 years. Her boss started pressuring her to complete our annual budget report faster, but this thing is huge and comprehensive and a figurative beast. Mary told the boss it would be ready in a couple of weeks, per the usual schedule. The boss said that it needed to be completed within 1 week to give to the higher ups. Mary said it wasn't possible. Boss emailed Mary plus CC a bunch of coworkers and the assistant managers, calling Mary out for a poor work ethic and for making the department look bad. Mary said it wasn't possible and didn't appreciate being bullied. She put in her notice to retire by the end of the week, leaving her boss high and dry. She was the only one who could do the budget report in a timely manner, so the department was double fucked. Good for her. Back in 5th grade, I was super lucky to have the elementary school's favorite teacher. Every single student loved her. My class was always super loud and annoying. We were working on some assignment before PE, and everyone was passing her off. She was only allowing students to go out if they finished the assignment. My slow ass was unfortunately one of the last kids in the room. This one student, who was a god-awful and annoying shitbag kid, was being way over the top. My teacher got up, put her hands over her ears and just started screaming, "Shut the fuck up. Just shut up. Shut up. Shut up." And she just stomped out of the room still screaming with her hands covering her ears. All of us just sat there in horror. Couple of kids just left to go to PE, and I sat there just trying to finish the assignment. Our principal came into the room a few minutes later just telling the rest of us to go out to PE, but she made the shitbag kid stay in the room with her. He was moved into the other 5th grade teacher's room after this. She was completely normal and fine after coming back, and there was nothing else that went wrong for the rest of the year. Just worked her ass off and made all of us love her by her caring soul and all of that fun stuff. But that moment completely traumatized me. My best friend had lost his mom to murder a few months prior when we were in the 10th grade. Somehow he had pulled himself together just enough to start going back to school. I don't know how he handled it with being an only child and growing up without a father. His mom was all he had. A kid that thought he was popular that got on everyone's nerves, cracked wise to my friend's face about his mom's death. What he said isn't exactly sure. My friend threw him on the ground and punched him in the face multiple times. The end result was a broken nose, a broken left orbital, and my friend got kicked out of school. We were very grateful he taught him a lesson, but saddened it had to come at such a high cost. She was an assistant manager and was known for being soft-spoken. At a manager meeting, one of the general managers, who was known for being a total jackass to everyone, was going off on how every store should be run. Well, she snapped. "You have the highest turnover rate out of any store in the district. You can't keep employees for more than 6 months before they just quit, all saying you were the problem. Maybe you should take that advice you're giving us and you sit on yourself." Edit. Wow. I didn't expect this to blow up, and thank you so much for the silver. So for anyone who's invested in what happened next, she put in her 2 weeks not even 3 days later. The manager who she yelled at was transferred to a different location out of that district. The store he managed has since bounced back and has been doing very well. Back in the 6th grade, I was in a class with this kid we'll call Hudson. Now Hudson was the nicest, calmest kid in the entire school and almost never spoke a word. Then came along someone who we'll call Will. Will was from a nearby city, and since we were all from a small little town, he thought of himself as above everyone else. This resulted in him being an overall piece of shit to everyone around him, whether it be students, EAs or even teachers. One day Will decided he wanted to try picking on Hudson, who was sat quietly reading a book. Will walked up to him, spat in his face, and took his book, and proceeded to tear out pages from it. Now, Hudson was a huge bookworm, so seeing a book having its pages being torn out by Will must have snapped something, because he lets out this unholy shriek and launches himself out of his chair and right onto him. Hudson then proceeds to beat the absolute crap out of him, and then, just when you thought he was done, he grabs the book and begins smacking him with it. I'm talking meaty slaps here, these could be heard very clearly. After almost a full minute of Hudson beating him with a book, a teacher finally returns to the class, only to see the quiet kid beating the ever-loving shit out of the prick with Harry Potter, the Deathly Hallows. If I remember correctly, Will managed to get off with only 3 days suspension and Hudson got at least a full week. When Will came back, he had a broken nose and enough bruises to make him look like a human grape if you looked at him right. Needless to say, Will didn't mess with anyone after that. Edit. My first Reddit awards. Thanks kind strangers. Edit. 2 thanks for my first gold kind strangers. When I was in high school, my group of like 6 friends was sitting at a round table in the cafeteria for breakfast. A table over, some girls had been tossing small chunks of their food in our direction. My one friend, M, wore her hair in an unusual, spiked up style, and I guess the girls at the table were trying land food in her hair while cackling to themselves. Cue my quiet, sweet, introverted friend, K, getting so angry I swear steam was coming out of her ears. One of the girls had thrown a decent sized piece of her egg patty at us, and it landed on the floor near K's foot. K proceeded to step on the egg patty, pick it up off the ground, walk over to the table of bullies, and shove the egg directly into the mouth of the one who had thrown it. This was such an amazing moment in my high school memory. I couldn't believe what I was seeing, as K was the last person I would have expected to do that. Of course she did get in trouble, but she didn't regret it one bit. Guy I'd worked with for about 10 years, never could get ahead at work, wasn't bad but just didn't really excel. He was always kind, always ready to laugh and crack a joke. Never saw or heard him be mean, but apparently him and his wife were having some trouble, though I'd not heard him talk about it much. But one day, while his youngest was out at church with a family member, he flipped out and shot his wife then himself. Another woman I worked with even prior to that, but at the same place, was super sweet and always smiling. She was mid-divorce and drowned her 3-year-old daughter in a bathtub at her dad's, the kid's grandpa's, because she didn't want to share her with her ex after the divorce. She's still in prison as far as I know. Both are kinda fucked up. A guy I knew freshman year was super chill. We'll call him James. He was the guy that, if you didn't like him or picked on him, everyone just hated you. So one day this absolute douche of a junior who thought he was so tough cause he was just older than him was just being a douche and picking on a group of freshmen for literally nothing. So James did the appropriate thing and stepped and told the junior to knock it off. Now James wasn't a very big dude, maybe 5 feet 6 inches and 120 maybe, give or take, and the junior was about 5 minutes and 11 seconds and 190, a fairly large difference. So this junior dude is like acting all tough and being a douche like usual, and James just sucker punches this dude in the stomach and proceeds to rock this dude's shit. The junior goes to the hospital and had a broken arm, 3 broken ribs, and a pretty messed up face. Nobody really bothered to ask James why he was able to beat this dude up so bad, but bottom line is, we all became very scared of James. Freshman and sophomore year, the same kid gave me shit at the bus stop and the whole walk home. Every single day, non-stop harassment, just kept needling me constantly. So many people asked me why I took it, but I was just really shy and passive at that age. I stayed quiet and didn't react. One day the kid tried to push me into some bushes thinking it'd be funny. He'd never gotten physical before. I grabbed his wrist and put him on his ass. He went down on his back, and when he tried to get up I put the past 2 years into a single punch that put him right back down. Next day in school, kid had the darkest black eye I'd ever seen. He wasn't at the stop for the next few days, and when he started taking it again he never said another word. I shocked a bunch of people, but turns out lots of other kids hated this guy and were jealous I gave him what he had coming. It did a lot of good for me, and the positive reaction kind of helped me come out of my shell 10/10ths would punch again. My brother was a sweet kid, emphasis on sweet, in elementary school. This was early 2000s, he was probably 8 at the time. Anyway, he did wrestling and baseball to pass time, but generally was a pretty average kid. He was smart and had a good amount of friends from the sports he played. Nothing special, though there was one kid who bullied him a lot. For no reason really. The bully's name was Garrett, but they would call my brother names and hide pencil/pens to get him yelled at in class. Well, one day Garrett for some odd reason decided to literally slap my brother in the face with a school lunch. Like a piece of pizza or something. Chicken fried steak maybe? My brother got up, picked him up by his shirt, and slammed him to the floor, proceeding to break the kid's nose and maxilla, upper jaw below the nose. After that everyone called him Garrett the Ferret, because he had to have his mouth wired shut. Fast forward a few years, and I was being bullied and Garrett actually stood up for me. I don't know if he got his shit together, or was just afraid of someone bullying me, knowing how my brother handles things. There was a kid at my school in about 7th grade. His name was Frederick. He was loved by everyone, was so nice, and donated to charity regularly. Everyone knew him and respected him. One day a new kid came to our school. We'll name him Josh. Josh was a big douche. He hit people, pushed them around, threw food at people during lunch, just honesty ever gas. Well, one day he decided to pick on Fred by doing his normal shit, and Frederick just went ballistic, punching, screaming, kicking. They were both suspended for 2 or 3 days. After their suspension they both came back, and Josh had a black eye, bruises on his arms and left leg, and he looked awful. Josh thought everyone would start to hate Fred after what he did to him. But nope. Everyone was tired of his shit and picked on him for how bad he looked. Fred was just loved more for this incident, though he told me he got grounded for a week. Edit. Some people are asking how he donated to charity regularly. I meant he and his family did volunteer work, like fundraisers, and his parents always donated to charity about twice every month. A guy I went to high school with, he was a senior, I a freshman, beat the living pulp out of his younger sister's BF. She freshman, BF was a senior. The older brother was a big nerd. He was also one of the most intelligent, genuine, and nice guys in the school. One day during lunch the younger sister's BF, who was an ass clown to put it shortly, decided to throw a bunch of fries across the lunchroom. It hit the older brother and the sister's BF called him a refugee instead of apologizing. The brother gets up and walks over to him and asks why he called him that instead of just saying sorry. The BF said, "Because I get to RPE your sister during sex every night." Everyone could not believe what they heard. The brother dragged him to the bathroom by his hair and I assume just beat the living shit out of him. There was a big crowd, so staff couldn't immediately get to them. There was blood literally all over the bathroom. To put their sizes into perspective, the older brother was 6 feet 2 and 240 pounds, dad bod with big arms, and the BF was a self-described hacker and was 5 feet 5 and maybe 140 lbs. He never came back to school after that beating. Happened in senior year. Our teacher was on maternity leave, so we got a substitute. Now, N was always popular with students and teachers because she was kind, intelligent, and had a witty sense of humor. We were all pretty sure some teachers considered her a friend more than just a student, especially those who didn't teach her. The substitute on the other hand hated her since day one because she would joke about her verbal abuse, for instance calling us all stupid. N jokingly agreed and cited that time we almost all failed in physics and therefore took away her power. One of our former classmates had committed suicide. The substitute was calling him weak and an idiot, and N just snapped. Told her to shut the fuck up. She never called out anyone like this. Substitute told N that she was trying to silence her and that it was typical for communists. N usually described herself as an European social democrat. N goes, "Well, since you just brought up free speech, let me tell you something. Your insecurities stem from your husband cheating on you, and at first I felt bad for you, but the more you spread your idiotic ideas, I can see why he is cheating." Substitute sent her to the principal straight away and laughed at the hypocrisy. At the principal's she calmly explained what had happened, including her own outburst. Principal was one of those that adored her to pieces. Substitute got fired and got a 3-day detention after she herself suggested that she should have some backlash, cause otherwise there will be copycats. To this day, she is a sweetheart and regularly checks up on almost all of our year and the teachers. Small school. Even dating one of our former teachers nowadays. She is 23, he is 29. No idea what happened with that substitute though. Edit. Spelling because apparently that substitute was indeed right in telling us we were stupid. A kid in my junior high was a really strange kid and had a huge crush on me. Gave me chocolate once a week, wrote me notes, etc. But all in all, he was generally nice and very quiet. I made sure to always be kind to him. Other kids in my grade would pick on him though, make fun of his dad who was a single father, etc. He always kind of just kept to himself and took it. I guess one day it was too much because 2 kids starting bullying him and he ended up pulling a knife on them and held it up to one of the kids' throats and threatened to kill him. He didn't do anything, but I never saw him again after that day. Really makes me glad my parents taught me to be kind to everyone. I hope he's doing okay. A girl back in school was performing a piece in music class, singing whilst playing the piano, and the douche bag of the class, known for being loud and being a bit of a bully, starts making quite snide comments about her singing. So he insults her to his friend. She continues singing. He whispers something else and chuckles. She continues singing. He starts muttering something else and pointing at her. She suddenly breaks off, marches over to a spare chair and launches it right at his face, then sits back down at the piano. Solid silence. The teacher takes her outside and then sends her to the principal. I ask her afterwards what the principal said. She said she never went. The teacher told her to go on early lunch to the cafeteria. Apparently the teacher had said, "I'm glad you did that, because if you hadn't I would off."